We've got some 49ers that stepped up to the plate and really showed up and showed out against the Jets. We're going to be talking about stock up 49ers. We're going to go through some of the questions that needed to be answered in week one, have the 49ers fully answer those questions, talk about some of the injuries that came out of the game and some of the injuries that are lingering. All that and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oop to Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Day after a big San Francisco 49ers victory over the visiting New York Jets. And it's always a time to take a look at what happened during that football game and really who showed up and who showed out. And a lot of times when you get back into the game film, you see a little bit more than maybe you saw in the TV copy or you saw in person. There's more things that are revealed because it's human nature for us to watch the ball where it goes. That's what you're looking for when you're watching football. But there's so much else that's going on during the game. Just because the ball's going to the right doesn't mean that cool and intriguing things aren't going on the left and things that are pivotal to the play working out or not working out. And so you've got to take a step back and look away from the ball once you've watched it through. Now, through the years, I've developed the ability to be able to see some of that, but you just can't see it all. You got to go back and look. But I think it's also a good time to look at the game and look at who the good performers were, who are stock up 49ers, and then just kind of go through and answer some of those questions that the 49ers definitely had. Of course, if you were watching yesterday before the game, I put up a 5 big questions that needed to be answered. I want to go through some of that. And plus, I want to go through some of the stuff from the game preview show. We talk about how the 49ers attacked the Jets, and if some of that can carry over into when they play the Minnesota Vikings, because yes, there's 17 games in the regular season, but every game is like a one-game season. You approach it with a different type of attitude and a different outlook because every team's a little bit different. This week, the offense with Nathaniel Hackett was one thing. Evan O'Connell runs a similar system, but there are different things that you're going to look at. But I do want to focus on who in this game played really well for the 49ers because there were guys who stepped up and maybe they answered some of the questions about whether, we had a stud at that player or that position or not. So it's going to be a fun episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. And so a couple of things, Kyle Shanahan spoke to media members today and kind of revealed some injury concerns or injury comments that people had. Everyone was asking during the reaction show last night, hey, what's up with Aaron Banks? And there was no clarity to that until after, and I was able to hear Kyle Shanahan's remarks. And we got even more clarity today on Banks and Jawan Jennings. And with Aaron Banks, it's a calf contusion. And so that means he took a shot somehow. He got kicked. And the reason that is significant and why you have to be careful with it, as somebody that's pulled a calf because of a contusion, I know firsthand that if you take contact like that, it can lead to more. So you take your time, you make sure you work this thing out. So he's going to be listed as day-to-day. So not out of the question that Aaron Banks will play against Minnesota. We'll see. Can he get back out there on the field and practice? I think that's going to be one of the things to monitor during this week. The good news for the 49ers, they have a lot of talent when it comes to the interior offensive line. And if Banks isn't able to go, they have a guy that started a lot of games in this league in Spencer Burford, who stepped in and stepped up during this game versus the Jets, and he looked really, really good. So I think that we've got a situation where we're hoping that Banks is going to be capable and ready to go. But we've seen what happens when Banks isn't able to move quickly laterally. Sometimes that puts him at risk of not being as good of a player in protection as we want. So they're going to monitor it. If Banks is able to go, I'm sure he'll go. If not, Spencer Burford will likely be tapped as the left guard starter, which means you'll likely get Ben Barch as an active player next week as the first guy in at left guard, with Nick Zakelj still being the first guy in at center. So something to monitor during the week. And then you look at Jawan Jennings. Of course, he went back in the game. He's listed as day-to-day as well with the ankle. So we'll see. He might need some time off to get that thing in order. I still think it's likely Jawan plays against Minnesota, but you never know after what happened with Christian McCaffrey. And the news about McCaffrey is McCaffrey's dealing with a little bit of Achilles tendonitis. So there is a chance that McCaffrey won't play in Minnesota. We'll see how it goes. Kyle said this is one of those things. It pops up sometimes. If this was a playoff game, he probably would have played. But you don't want to risk it this early in the season and potentially have something that's more significant that keeps him out for more time. So that's just a little bit of the updates when it comes to some of the injury concerns coming out of the game. And now let's get into the stock up 49ers. And you know what? Whenever you have a young player that steps up the way Dominic Pooney did in this football game, the way that he was the second highest ranked offensive lineman in this game, just behind the greatest offensive tackle of all time and Trent Williams, you know you had yourself a good day. And I think one of the things that was really important for Dominic Pooney was how well was he going to play in run offense and run blocking, and he was superb. An 81 grade as far as run blocking, that is fantastic. He gave up one pressure according to PFF. According to the 33rd team, he gave up 0. So which one of that is it? It depends on how you grade it out. But either way, tremendous performance by Dominic Pooney. 35 snaps against guys like Quinnen Williams and Javon Kinlaw. Williams, 5.5 sacks last year. Javon Kinlaw, 3.5 sacks last year. They're able to get to the quarterback, but they weren't able to on Dominic Pooney. He held up. He anchored. It was a great first test going against Quinnen Williams, and he passed. And so that's good news for the 49ers because you've got a player now at right guard that you feel comfortable. And one thing that was pointed out on the live reaction show, and I got to give credit to my guy David Campbell, he said, the 49ers ran more right than I've seen them run in recent memory. And I think that's spot on. The 49ers were attacking the right side a little bit more down the stretch as they relied on Dominic Pooney and Colt McKivitz. Colt McKivitz blocking well. First play of the game took Javon Kinlaw all the way down the line of scrimmage. So far, he actually messed up the block of Jake Brendel. Brendel was supposed to be coming off a double team and pushing to linebacker, and he wasn't able to get there because of how well Colt McKivitz washed Javon Kinlaw all the way down. It was a phenomenal block. But we were getting great blocking from the interior part of this offensive line and some with the tackles. Trent Williams and Colt McKivitz had themselves good days as well. But I think Dominic Pooney being able to anchor is huge. Why is it so significant for the 49ers to have an offensive guard that can anchor? Because you don't want to allow pressure into Brock Purdy's face. When Brock Purdy has people in his face and he's not able to step up, it makes it more difficult. It's not that he can't do it. It makes it more difficult. All quarterbacks, same thing. You look back at that, there was a legal hand to the face on Jake Brendel that actually walked Brendel back into the quarterback, and Purdy threw the ball short. And Troy Aikman was making a big deal about, hey, if you'd have got that ball, there, it would have been able to get caught. But he couldn't because he couldn't step into the throw because Brendel, there was a legal hand to the face. It was legit. Got walked back. That's one thing you don't worry about with Dominic Pooney. I seen him anchoring against Quinnen Williams. He might give up a little bit of ground, but at some point, boom, he anchors and he stops the movement. And having that with Aaron Banks, who's a pretty good anchor, means the only guy right now on your offensive line that doesn't anchor consistently is Jake Brendel. Colt McKivitz will have his moments. That's just the Colton McKivitz experience. But Brendel, that's the weakness for him, is anchoring. I thought he did okay. There was one play where Javon Kinlaw absolutely chucked him That's another story for another day. But that is at least a strength now for the 49ers when it comes to the guard out. They do a pretty good job anchoring, and they don't just get bull rushed back to the quarterback. And if that interior offensive line can hold up like that, that's going to help Brock. But also, Dominic Pooney improving in the run blocking aspect of his game means he's going to be more complete, and more complete offensive guard is good. And how quickly he's picking this up is fantastic. And that's one thing that we're starting to see is this is a guy that's not out of the question to play Pro Bowl caliber play this year. Now, was this a perfect performance for Dominic Pooney? No. Is there still things to work on? Yes. But the good news about it is Dominic Pooney continues to be impressive and continues to get better and better. From what we saw in college to what we saw in training camp to what we saw now, vast improvements for Dominic Pooney. Stock is way up for the 49ers starting right guard, and there's no looking back. There is no looking back. He's going to be the 49ers starting right guard for at least the next 4 years. We'll see what happens after that. 49ers don't value interior offensive linemen the way a lot of teams in the league do, and they don't pay guards, so we'll see. But Pooney's at least here for the next 4 years, and he's a really good one. So excited about Dominic Pooney and how he played in this game. Jordan Mason is another stock-up 49er. And I know that Jordan Mason, for 49er fans, we know that he can run well. But I think even if you knew he could run well, you still saw things that Jordan Mason did in this game where you could see the improvements over the last couple of years. First off, pass protection, so much better in this game. Number two, just the feel and the read. So he's pretty good at finding the proper holes. He does a good job, but there were a couple times in this game where the pursuit was getting there and he put his foot in the ground and he cut back and he worked around and got extra yardage. So the vision, the patience, the strength, the speed on display. Saw a cool stat that he was second only behind Lamar Jackson for how many times he hit 15 miles per hour on run plays. He did it at 10. Fantastic. That means Jordan Mason was getting up to speed when he was running through these holes, and then he was a real problem for the Jets to be able to tackle. And I think that's one of the cool things about having Jordan Mason is he is a punishing back who finishes runs. And so as the game progresses and as you're running downhill consistently, you wear on opposing defenses. And that's one thing that Jordan Mason can add. And the more confident that the 49ers get with Jordan Mason being able to handle the task of being a solid running back, the more that they can rest Christian McCaffrey at times. They can allow Jordan Mason to get extra carries and extra yards and take some of that pressure off McCaffrey, who is really good runner. I mean, fantastic, but also adds so much in the passing game and so much on third down that having him fresh for the fourth quarter is important. So Mason ran 28 times for 147 yards, 5.1 yards per carry and a touchdown. It really should have been 2 touchdowns, but the bad call on the Deebo Samuel holding, just a really bad call. But Jordan Mason was fantastic in this game. He deserves all the flowers, all the accolades that he's getting because it was a great performance. And you know what? The offensive line looked good. It was guys like Dominic Pooney opening holes, and Jordan Mason took full advantage of it. And I think it gives the 49ers at least a sigh of relief that they have a guy that's capable. And he rushed for 28 carries in that game, and he looked like he could have rushed for another 28. I mean, that dude was cool, calm, collected, and he's prepared for this moment. He had the one catch, too. That was not a easy catch to make. Great hands catch. You could see the work that he put under the jugs machine, and that's one of the things I'm most impressed with Dominic Pooney and Jordan Mason. The work during the offseason. For Mason, I think it's a little bit more clear because we know Kyle Shanahan and Bobby Turner have been really working on him to get certain things down, and now he's reached that goal and got them done. Fantastic, Jordan Mason. Malik Collins. Malik Collins only had 2 tackles in this game, but he did a really good job. He was a penetrator into the backfield. He was wreaking havoc, and him and Javon Hargrave's penetrating nature really made it difficult for Breece Hall to ever get going. They held Breece Hall under 55 yards rushing, an impressive feat for the 49ers. And a lot of it starts with the activity up front. You got to be active. You've got to be in the backfield. If you are a defensive lineman that's predicated on speed and athleticism, you're not a guy that can sit there and take on double teams. You've got to make sure you get into the backfield and make problems for the opposing offense I thought Malik Collins did that in a big way. He was disruptive. He flashed. He made plays. He ends up hustling and getting on the fumble recovery. He gets that play. Fred Warner knocks the ball out. Guess who's right there? Malik Collins. He's on top of it, tighter than a lid on a pickle jar. That's exactly what you have to have from a defensive tackle. And I think we saw the athleticism on display. We saw the intelligence football-wise on display. And we saw the excellent technique. He did a great job. Him and Hargrave are going to be a problem next to each other all season. Big fan of Malik Collins. And, we didn't get to see a lot of him during preseason. He only played the Raider game. I thought he looked great in that one, chucking guys off and making plays. And in this one, he was impressive as well. I think stock up from Malik Collins. And 49er fans have got to feel a little bit better about their interior defensive line, considering Malik Collins flashed like he did, and Jordan Elliott was one of PFF's top 5 performers on defense in his 15 snaps that he played. Didn't have any tackles, but he played well. That's good news. You need good defensive line depth. Defensive tackle seems to be a strength for the San Francisco 49ers. Isaac Yedem, and this was everyone's introduction to Isaac Yedem that wasn't able to make it to training camp. We kept saying Isaac Yedem is going to be the third corner. He's going to play so well. Everyone likes him, but no one got to see it. And so I thought it was nice to see Yedem out there playing well. And yes, he gave up the catch down the sideline to Allen Lazard, but he was competing. And for the most part, Aaron Rodgers didn't test Yedem a whole lot. He did take the one to Lazard. That was a nice throw down the sideline. He did try to go at him a little bit with Garrett Wilson. Wilson knocked the ball away. But overall, I thought Yedem competed. He played well. And you just didn't see the off coverage, a lot of space, the way that we've seen 49ers cornerbacks 3 do before. And so now the 49ers got to feel more comfortable that they've improved in the depth behind Deommodore Lenoir and Charvarius Ward. And Yedem did a good job. He comes up and he helps play the run. He plays good against the pass. He's good in zone coverage. He's long. I mean, this is a vast improvement from what we've seen. And they still got Rock Ya-Sin back there as well, who played really good in the preseason. 49ers are stacked at cornerback, and it's nice to see a guy like Isaac Yedem, who just said this week he would love to finish out his career in San Francisco. That's how much he likes it. And so he is a perfect scheme fit. He plays well on the outside. I thought he had a really good game. He graded out on PFF at a 76. Really good performance from Isaac Yedem, and I think he's only going to get better. This is his first action of the season. So, I mean, tough test next week. Everyone's got to worry about Justin Jefferson, and that's going to be a test for Yedem. It's going to be a test for Lenoir and for Charvarius Ward, but we'll see. I think they did a pretty good job against Garrett Wilson and the Jets wide receivers, and let's see if they can carry it over. But definitely the best third corner the 49ers have had in a long time in San Francisco. Good to see Yedem getting out there competing and making plays. And Colton McKivitz, and I know this might shock you. You might not like it. Is there plays in this game where you're like, Colton, come on, man. Yes, there's a couple plays here and there where you're like, man, that wasn't great. But what the rest of the game was pretty consistent. I talked about the play with Javon Kinlaw. Colton McKivitz blocked well. He gave up one hurry in this football game. This was a great performance from Colton McKivitz in Colton McKivitz standards. This is a right tackle who didn't play well last year for the most part. But a lot of that was last year, how did he start the season? Giving up 3 sacks to TJ Watt. This week, it definitely wasn't the same talent on the outside. He was not going against big-time pass rushers. He got Jermaine Johnson sometimes, Michael Clemens. But this wasn't Hassan Reddick. This wasn't somebody that could really force him up the field with speed and get him off balance, or anyone that had enough strength to walk him back to the quarterback. So no test yet for Colton McKivitz. But one of the concerns has been with Colton McKivitz in the past was run blocking. And he was good in run blocking. He was opening holes. He was driving people out of the way. And now you've got a formidable right side in run blocking with Dominic Pooney and with Colton McKivitz. And maybe Dominic Pooney is having an effect on Colton McKivitz and making him a little bit better. Am I saying that Colton McKivitz was, beyond fantastic? No, I'm just saying in Colton McKivitz standards, this was a good performance and a step in the right direction. If he can stack and build upon this, we might have a solid right tackle on our hands. And so that's good news. Now, it always helps the offensive line when the run game is going well. So it takes the pressure off when it comes to pass protection. But the 49ers weren't exactly having Brock Purdy get rid of the football, in 2.5 seconds the way that the Jets were with Aaron Rodgers. They were allowing Brock Purdy to take shots down the field. Big one to Kyle Juszczyk. You have to hold your blocks for a while. And yes, the 49ers gave help. They chipped. They helped with Dominic Pooney. They did a lot of things, but that's something that Chris Foerster's talked about before. You can do those types of things to protect yourself, to make sure that Colton McKivitz and right tackles like that have good games and still have effective offense with the amount of weapons you have. I thought it was a good performance from Colton McKivitz, and I'm hoping he can build upon it. We got to give a little credit where it's due, and he did a good job. And of course, you're not going to mention the guys as stock-up players. Guys like Fred Warner played fantastic. Trent Williams. I mean, the fact that he didn't have any training camp and he steps in, and he doesn't give up a single pressure in the snaps that he played, it's phenomenal. Is there a couple plays where someone gets across his face as far as run blocking? Yes. It wasn't a perfect performance for Trent, but all things considering, now you see why he's the best left tackle. I mean, he just proved it. He just walked in after, I'm sure he had great preparation during the offseason, but he walks in with no practice, no training camp, and plays that well. You got to give the guy a lot of credit. And the 49ers are really happy that they have him. So it was a good performance from those guys. Of course, Charvarius Ward, I got to mention this. They just didn't even throw Charvarius Ward's way. You look at the next-gen stats graph on where the balls went. There's like 4 passes that went to the left side of the defense at Charvarius Ward. He just played phenomenal in this game and nearly had an interception, but Aaron just didn't really test him. They wanted to test linebackers. They wanted to test the 49ers safeties, and that's what they did. So those are some of the stock-up players. Now let's go through the questions, because I had 5 big questions coming into it. And number 5 was Ayuk and Trent's health and conditioning. And I thought that you saw them hold up. I think Ayuk looked rusty, that's for sure. Wasn't making the catches easy and then missed the one in the end zone. And then Trent down the stretch, he started wearing down. He had to go get an IV. But they held up. Health-wise, they came out without injuries. That's important. So I think that one was the answer, that they were good enough, and they'll get better as they play more games. Nick Sorensen's first game as defensive coordinator, thought he was fantastic. I have no problems with the way he called defense. I thought he was on point. He made the right calls when he had to. Besides one really good drive by the Jets, 49ers played superb football the entire time, and he put his playmakers in positions to make plays, and they made them for him. But, he just called a really good, superb game, kept Aaron Rodgers flustered. They kept Breece Hall from getting going on the ground. He was bringing guys in the box at the right time. He was playing situational football. I thought he handled himself really well. Guys up. Sky's the limit for Nick Sorensen. He's a stock-up 49er as far as that goes. Number 3 was how the 49ers played the run, and I thought they were fantastic in this game. I talked about them holding Breece Hall in check. They were good on the outside. They played that really well. Bosa getting out there making plays. Fred and the alley defenders doing well. Overall, good performance. And you saw the defensive tackles being active and making plays on the interior. And I think that was huge. Depth at defensive end. I think this one was a little bit of a mixed bag. I thought we saw good plays from Robert Beal Jr., a couple run stops. We saw Sam Okawanu, in there competing. I think that Yetur Gross-Matos is definitely missed. And Kyle Shanahan said that today's practice for Gross-Matos and for D. Winters is going to be huge to determine if they're going to be available for the game versus the Vikings. But I thought overall, those guys held up good enough. You right now you can play your starters a lot and let these guys sprinkle in. But at some point, right, they're going to have to answer the questions. I think that one not fully answered yet. I think they did good enough in the game, and that's good. But let's see how this thing progresses. And then Sam linebacker, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, he played 12 snaps. That's the good thing about playing the Jets. They're going to play mostly 11 personnel, and the 49ers were able to stay in nickel for most of the game. It means you don't have to have Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles on the field. Now, he did get an interception. It was Deommodore Lenoir that tipped the ball away, and it landed in his lap, and he made a great catch. He dove and caught it. Give credit to DFF on that play. But I think Sam linebacker is still a question mark for the 49ers when it comes to run defense. DFF, the first play of the game, they go outside to Breece Hall, and he has him lined up. He gets downhill perfectly. He's playing it exactly how you're supposed to play, and he misses the tackle. And, that's one of the things they got to answer. So, the in-depth, especially until Gross Matos comes back, and then also Sam linebacker. Those two opened. The other three, I think, were answered by the 49ers, and you got to give them credit for that. I think they did a really good job. Now, the offensive key to the game for the 49ers was to run the football against this Jets defense that wasn't great as far as stopping the run. And I thought they did a superb job in this game running the football. We talked about Jordan Mason. Deebo Samuel sprinkled in some carries as well. But they ran the ball 38 times for 180 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. That's really fantastic. And then one of the keys for the Jets was to run the ball on the 49ers, and they really didn't get it done. They were only able to get 19 carries for 68 yards at 3.6 yards per carry. The Niners gave up 4.1 yards per carry last year, so they've already brought it down. And this is a small sample size, but doing a pretty good job. They held Breece Hall to 16 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. Overall, I mean, they just played well, and that's one area the 49ers dominated. You had to run the football. They did. They took advantage of the Jets' bad run defense, and the 49ers showed their run defense is not as bad as everyone thought, and it's improved a lot, and that was really important, in this football game. So I thought that overall they did a good job with that. George Kittle had a pretty good day. He had 4 catches for 40 yards going against Clark and Adams. So it was, as part of the game plan, it did work out. So that was huge. And, one of the emphasis that I had on here for stopping the run game as far as our defense stopping theirs was that toss crack play. And I thought they did a really good job in getting it done. The 49ers continue to be a lot better in several areas, and one of those was they were a lot better on third down in this game. And you have to, you have to play good as far as, getting off the field on third down is very, very important to make sure you do that. And I thought they were a lot better in this matchup. And I'm hoping that they'll continue to get better and better on third down. Because if you can get off the field on third down, you're going to have the ability to make a lot of plays. So I thought they did a good job there. We didn't get to see as much red zone offense from the 49ers that I like. A lot of field goals, 6 field goals. You got to give Jake Moody some credit. Maybe he's a stock up 49er, right? 6 field goals, 2 of them for 50+ yards. So he did a really good job, but we need more touchdowns, less field goals, but it is week 1. So we'll see what happens with the 49ers. Now, one thing they did do, which was huge in this game, was won the turnover battle. 49ers turned the football over 0 times. And after the initial 2 drives, Mitch Wisnowski did not punt. The 49ers scored on 8 consecutive drives. They were either getting touchdowns or field goals. That's really good football. And I think that's one thing that was huge. You had last season, 49ers created a lot of turnovers. The Jets were right behind them, yet the Jets weren't able to get anything, and the 49ers got +2. So that's huge. Turnover margin, third down efficiency, those are all keys to winning football games, and they did a really good job doing it. So I was pumped about that for the 49ers defense. And, Nick Sorensen and Brandon Staley being effective is huge. But Kyle Shanahan and that 49ers offense, keeping the defense off the field and going on long drives, huge. It's a game of keep away. And then if that offense, if you get a defensive stop and then you go back on offense, it's fantastic. I mean, look at the way Kyle Shanahan handled the end of the first half. Brilliantly. They get the ball with over 5 minutes left. They march down the field. They use all the time they possibly can. And he dials up a play for Brock Purdy to hit Brandon Ayuk in the back of the end zone. Brock lays it out there where Brandon Ayuk can make a play. Ayuk doesn't catch it, but Kyle Shanahan handles the situation well as far as clock management, and the 49ers executed for the most part. Now, they walk away with a field goal instead of a touchdown, but you gave Aaron Rodgers no time to make a play. And then you go 2 for 1 because then you get the ball right back and you march down at the start of the half and score a touchdown. Those types of things are pivotal to winning football games. And it starts with Kyle Shanahan understanding the situation and the players executing. And I thought for the most part, they did a good job. So let's talk about my wow, that's bold predictions. I had Kittle going for 80 and a touchdown. I was wrong on that. Kittle only had 40, so he got half of it, and he did not get a touchdown. I thought Christian McCaffrey was going to play in this game, and I think everyone else thought Christian McCaffrey was going to play in this game. But I had him and Jordan Mason getting a touchdown. But Jordan Mason did get a touchdown, and Debo got a touchdown running the ball. So I was right about the 2 rushing touchdowns, wrong about who they were. But Jordan Mason did half of it right for me by getting a touchdown. Now on defense, here's where it gets interesting. I had Deommodore Lenoir with an INT. He did not get an INT, but he did contribute to an INT by knocking the ball away from Garrett Wilson. DFF has the interception. So I had him being involved, just not actually making the play. And then Breece Hall, I had him holding Breece Hall under 75 yards rushing on the ground, and they did that. They held him under 60 yards on the ground. So they did a really good job as far as defense. I had a feeling that the run defense for the 49ers was going to be really good and able to handle business, and they did. And, of course, my score prediction, I had the 49ers win by 8, and they did better than that. They won by 13. I did not think the 49ers were going to score 30 points, but you know what? When you score in 8 straight drives, the Jets are lucky they didn't score 40-plus points. That's efficient and effective offense for the 49ers, and a lot of it starts with Brock Purdy, but an effective run game leads into productive passing game. Overall, it was a great performance by the 49ers. And we've seen guys stepping up, young guys like Dominic Pooney stepping into the forefront. A key veteran signing in Isaac Yedem stepping up. A key trade aspect in Malik Collins stepping up. 49ers are doing a good job, and they got Minnesota this week. They're going to try to make it 2-0, and that's going to be a lot of fun to get into as Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson are waiting for the 49ers to get to Minnesota. And it's been a house of horrors for the 49ers throughout the years. 49ers normally don't play well when they're playing the Minnesota Vikings. They went in there last year and lost. Of course, Kirk Cousins played pretty well. TJ Hawkinson. So we're going to get in all into 49ers versus Vikings this week as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate everyone that's been doing that. It means the world to me, so thank you so much. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe. It's available on all audio platforms. And, of course, this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.